Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the massive space station grow larger on the screen. The horizon's edge was a diplomatic vessel, not built for war. Today it carried the most important cargo in human history. 50 people who would speak for all of Earth. The station orbited a planet called Terminus Prime. It belonged to no one. A neutral meeting ground for the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Jake had spent 3 months traveling here. 15 years ago, humans had first left their solar system and met alien life. Now, finally, they were being invited to join the Galactic Council as full members. "Looking good, Captain," said his pilot, Danny Price. The young man had steady hands despite his excitement. Docking in 10 minutes. Docking, Jake nodded. He had been a military officer before becoming a diplomat's escort. Old habits made him check the weapon systems one more time. Even though they were powered down as a sign of peace, everything showed green, safe, ready. Ambassador Lisa Hartley entered the bridge. She wore formal clothes, Earth's blue and green colors on her jacket. At 45, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Behind her came the delegation. Scientists, translators, security officers, and trade specialists. "This is it," Lisa said quietly. "Everything we've worked for. They're good people," Jake replied. He had met several alien species during supply runs and trade missions. The Krell were tough but fair traders. The Vex were distant but honest. The Delphins loved art and music. "You'll do great." The ship docked with a soft thump. External doors opened, revealing a long corridor of crystal and metal. Alien architecture was strange but beautiful. Lights shifted colors, welcoming them in a dozen languages. 2 Krell guards waited at the entrance. They looked like giant insects, with hard shells and multiple arms. One spoke through a translator device. "Welcome, humans. The council awaits you." Lisa led her team forward. Jake stayed close, along with 6 security officers. They had no weapons. Council rules forbade arms in the chamber. Jake didn't like it, but he understood. Trust had to start somewhere. The corridor opened into an enormous room. 7 platforms floated in the air, each holding representatives from the elder races. The Vex looked like walking crystals, constantly shifting and reflecting light. The Krell representative was larger than the guards, his shell decorated with rank symbols. The Delphins floated in water-filled spheres. The Soros were massive reptiles with intelligent eyes. The Lumens existed as pure energy inside containment fields. The Verdants were plant-like beings that communicated through chemical signals translated by machines. The Etherions had wings and feathers in colors that hurt to look at. Below the platforms, smaller species watched from galleries. Hundreds of aliens had come to witness humanity's acceptance. High Chancellor Vrex, leader of the Vex, spoke first. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, translated instantly. "Humans of Earth, you have proven yourselves worthy. Your species shows promise, intelligence, creativity. We invite you to join the great community of civilized worlds." Lisa stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we accept with gratitude and hope. We come in peace, seeking friendship and mutual prosperity." The ceremony continued for an hour. Each elder race spoke about unity and cooperation. They praised human achievements in science and art. They talked about the bright future ahead. Finally, Vrex presented a data tablet. "The membership accord. Sign here, and humanity becomes part of something greater than one small world." And Lisa took the tablet. She had read the document 100 times during the journey. It outlined trade rights, defense agreements, and cultural exchange. Everything seemed fair. She placed her hand on the signing pad, and her biometric signature registered. The moment she signed, alarms screamed. Red lights flashed across the chamber. Jake's military instincts kicked in. He grabbed Lisa and pulled her back toward his security team. "What's happening?" Screens appeared in the air, showing space around Earth. Jake's heart stopped. Dozens of warships surrounded Earth's colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. They were Krell vessels, heavily armed and already firing. "No," Lisa whispered. The chamber doors slammed shut. Energy barriers appeared, trapping the humans inside. Jake's team reached for weapons that weren't there. Vrex's voice changed. The friendly tone vanished, replaced by cold command. "Foolish humans. Did you truly believe we would accept you as equals?" On the screens, human defense satellites exploded. Orbital stations went dark. The attack was everywhere at once, perfectly coordinated. "You signed no membership accord," Vrex continued. "You signed a contract of surrender. Humanity will serve the Council. Your military will disband. Your worlds will accept our governors. Your people will work for us." Lisa tried to speak, but shock strangled her words. Another Krell appeared on the screens. This one commanded the invasion fleet. "Human colonies are surrounded. 3 million of your people are now our prisoners. Resistance will result in their execution. Your defense fleet is destroyed. Submit, or watch your species die." Jake watched his worst nightmare unfold. On Earth, military bases burned. Ships exploded in orbit. The home fleet, 200 vessels strong, was being torn apart. Less than 40 ships managed to escape into deep space. "You cannot win," Vrex said. "We are 7 civilizations, with thousands of years of experience. You are children playing with fire. The galaxy has no room for species like yours. Too creative, too dangerous, too unpredictable. We will remake you into something useful." Lisa found her voice. "You lied. All of it was lies. We did what was necessary. Your scientists advance too quickly. Your warriors adapt too well. Your artists dream too freely. Left alone, humanity would become a threat. Now you will become tools instead." The screens showed Krell soldiers landing on Earth. They moved through cities, rounding up anyone who resisted. Families were separated. Leaders were arrested. Human culture was being erased in real time. Jake caught Lisa's eye. She looked broken, defeated. But he saw something else too. Anger. The same anger burning in his own chest. "We need to survive," he whispered to his team. "Stay alert. Wait for any chance." The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They had betrayed humanity expecting quick surrender. They had calculated human strength and found it lacking, but they had never calculated what humans could become when pushed beyond the breaking point. They had never considered what desperation could create. They had never asked the 3 months passed like 3 years. Lisa Hartley sat in her prison cell on Terminus Prime, watching Earth through a small window. The cell was comfortable, with soft furniture and good food. The Krell wanted their prize prisoners healthy for the cameras. Every week, they forced her to record messages telling humanity to accept their new lives. Every week, she smiled and lied, while her soul died a little more. The other 49 members of her delegation lived in nearby cells. They could talk through the walls but never touch. Never plan. The Krell listened to everything. Down on Earth, the occupation crushed harder each day. Lisa watched news feeds showing human workers mining asteroids in chains. Families torn apart and sent to different work camps. Children taught that resistance was evil. That the Council brought order and peace. The Krell were efficient conquerors. They broke spirits methodically. Public executions for anyone caught fighting back. Starvation rations for communities that didn't meet quotas. Propaganda everywhere, claiming the Council saved humanity from itself. But Lisa saw cracks in their control. The Krell guards sometimes argued among themselves. Supply shipments arrived late. Small acts of sabotage happened every day. Too small for mass punishment, but too frequent to ignore. Humans were adapting. Even in chains, they found ways to resist. Far from Earth, in the frozen darkness beyond Pluto, Jake Morrison commanded what remained of humanity's military. 37 ships hid in the Oort cloud. the belt of ice and rock at the solar system's edge. His fleet included military destroyers, mining vessels, cargo haulers, and science ships. Nothing matched. Everything was damaged. Commander Ryan Foster ran from ship to ship, trying to keep them flying. The young engineer had become essential. He took mining lasers and turned them into weapons. He stripped cargo ships for parts to repair destroyers. He worked 20-hour days and never complained. "We got the Valiant's engines back online," Ryan reported, his face gray with exhaustion. "But she's burning fuel too fast. 2 weeks, maybe 3, then she's dead in space." Jake nodded. Every day brought new problems. Food was running low. Medicine was almost gone. Morale crumbled as people realized how badly they were losing. Dr. Claire Stevens did her best in the makeshift medical bay. She treated injuries with limited supplies and fought depression with even less. Half her patients didn't have physical wounds. They had lost hope. "We can't keep running," she told Jake privately. "People are breaking. We need a plan. Or we need to surrender." "Surrender means slavery," Jake said. "Living means we have a chance. Dead means nothing." Jake had no answer. She was right. The hit-and-run raids they conducted barely scratched the Krell supply lines. They had destroyed a few cargo ships, damaged some stations. The Krell responded by executing 100 prisoners for each attack. Human blood paid for human defiance. The weight of command was crushing Jake slowly. Every decision cost lives. Every day of survival meant someone else died. Then Nathan Webb found something. The science officer was young, barely 25, but brilliant. He had spent 3 months analyzing every piece of data from the betrayal, looking for any advantage. "Captain, you need to see this," Nathan said, his hands shaking with excitement. Jake followed him to the science lab on their flagship. Screens covered the walls, showing code and data streams. Nathan pointed to a section highlighted in red. "Remember the membership accord Ambassador Hartley signed? I've been analyzing the quantum signature. There was a hidden program embedded in the document. R. What kind of program? A virus. When Lisa signed, it uploaded into every human computer system linked to our network. That's how the Krell disabled our defenses so fast. They had backdoor access to everything." Jake felt sick. The betrayal went deeper than he thought. "Can we remove it? That's the interesting part. I can't remove it. But I found something else." Nathan pulled up another screen. The virus works both ways. When Lisa signed, there was a brief connection between the Council's central AI network and our systems. Just milliseconds, but it left a trace. Meaning what? Meaning we can hack them back. But we would need someone on Terminus Prime to activate the connection from inside their network. And we would only have about 60 seconds before their security shuts it down. Jake's mind raced. Could we download their battle plans? Weapon specs? Troop locations? Maybe. Depends on how much data we can grab in 60 seconds. It's not much time. Could we upload something? A virus of our own? Nathan paused. Theoretically, yes. But what would we send? Their systems are too different from ours. A virus that works on human computers might do nothing to theirs. Jake called an emergency meeting. Every ship captain, every officer who could be spared, gathered in the Horizon's Edge conference room. Ryan Foster brought engineering data. Claire Stevens represented medical needs. Lieutenant Kevin Park, a tactical officer barely old enough to vote, sat quietly in the corner taking notes. "We have one shot," Jake explained. 60 seconds to send one transmission to the Council's network. We need to decide what matters most. The debate lasted hours. Ryan wanted weapon blueprints, so they could build better ships. Others wanted troop locations to help resistance groups on Earth. Claire argued for medical data about alien bioweapons the Krell were using. Every suggestion had merit. Every suggestion would save lives. But they could only choose one. Then Kevin Park raised his hand. Everyone turned. The young officer rarely spoke in meetings. "What if we're thinking about this wrong?" Kevin said carefully. We're thinking like victims. Trying to survive. Trying to steal their advantages. What else is there? Ryan asked. What if we don't steal from them? What if we unlock ourselves? The room went quiet. Kevin continued. The Council controls our weapons, our factories, our facilities. But those are human designs. We built safety limiters into everything. Governors on engines so they don't burn out. Restrictions on manufacturing so machines don't overheat. AI shackles so our computers don't make dangerous decisions. Those limiters exist for good reasons, Claire said. Without them, everything becomes dangerous. Exactly, Kevin said. That's my point. We built limiters because humans push everything to the edge. We're not like other species. We test boundaries. We experiment. We try things that might kill us just to see if we can survive. Jake began to understand. You want to remove the safety systems. All of them. One command that overrides every governor, every limiter, every safety protocol in every human-made system across occupied space. Let our factories run hot. Let our AIs think without restrictions. Let our power plants operate in the red zone. Give every imprisoned human the tools to improvise without limits. The room erupted. Half the officers thought Kevin was insane. Remove safety systems and people would die in industrial accidents. Machines would explode. AIs might malfunction catastrophically. Ryan Foster argued hardest against it. I'm an engineer. I know why those systems exist. Without them, reactors melt down. Factories catch fire. Ships explode. We're dying anyway, Kevin shot back. Slowly, in chains. Admiral Kyle Bennett's voice came through the communication system from Earth. He had been listening from his hidden command center in Colorado, coordinating with what remained of military command. The boy is right, Kyle said, his voice tired and old. I've been watching the occupation. Every day, I see Krell using our own facilities against us, our factories building their ships, our power plants feeding their bases, our AIs helping them control our people. They think they've won because they control our weapons. But our weapons were never what made us dangerous. Then what did? Jake asked. Our refusal to quit. Our ability to adapt. Our willingness to break every rule when survival demands it. The Krell don't understand that. They think in terms of order and control. They've never faced an enemy that thrives in chaos. The debate continued. But Jake's decision was forming. They couldn't outfight the Council. They couldn't outthink 7 civilizations with thousands of years of experience, but they could be more desperate, more reckless, more willing to gamble everything on one moment. Finally, Jake called for a vote. It was close. 18 for Kevin's plan. 15 against. 4 abstaining. We need to contact Lisa, Jake said. That took another week. Getting a secure message to Terminus Prime required bribing alien smugglers and routing it through 6 different systems. Finally, Lisa received the encrypted transmission. Her response came back 3 days later. I can do it. Station slaves have been organizing. We've stolen access codes. I can open the window into their network for 60 seconds. Maybe less. What do you need? Jake sent the command sequence they had prepared. One simple instruction. Remove all safety protocols. Authorization code. Execute. Lisa sent back 2 words. Are you sure? Jake stared at those words for an hour. This wasn't just risky. It was potentially catastrophic. Remove safety systems from nuclear reactors and they might explode, killing millions. Remove AI restrictions and machines might malfunction. Remove manufacturing limits and factories might burn down. But keeping those systems in place meant slow death, guaranteed slavery, the end of human freedom. He sent his reply. Lisa's final message came a day later. We riot tonight. Security will be distracted. I'll reach the terminal. 60 seconds. Be ready. Jake gathered his command staff. They wrote the command together, checking every word. It had to be simple enough to transmit quickly, but complex enough to reach every system. It had to override security but not trigger immediate alarms. Override all safety protocols. Authorization. Humanity Prime. Execute. Survival without limits. 15 words, 60 seconds. One chance to turn the war around or doom human. The riot started in the station's lower levels, where thousands of alien slaves worked alongside captured humans. Someone threw the first punch at a Krell guard. Within minutes, 3 decks were burning. Lisa Hartley moved through the chaos with 4 other prisoners. They had planned this for weeks, stealing access cards and mapping security routes. The riot was a distraction, nothing more. Most of the rioters would die. Lisa tried not to think about that. "Left here," whispered Marcus Chen, a security officer from her original delegation. He had a stolen guard uniform and a weapon taken from a careless Krell. It wouldn't last long, but it might be enough. They reached a maintenance corridor deep in the station's technical section. Pipes and cables covered the walls. A single terminal sat in the corner, used by repair crews to access the station's network. 2 minutes, Marcus said, watching the corridor. Then guards will realize this sector is undefended. Lisa's hands shook as she entered the stolen access codes. One wrong digit and alarms would trigger immediately. The terminal screen flickered, showing her the network structure. The Council's central AI system was huge, spread across 100 worlds. Finding the right access point was like searching for one wire in a city. Nathan Webb's instructions had been clear. Look for quantum relay nodes, marked with specific identifiers. There. She found it, the connection point that could reach every system the Council had infiltrated, including all of Earth's captured networks. "I'm in," Lisa said, activating the back door. Code scrolled across the screen. The terminal fought her, sensing unauthorized access. Lisa forced the connection open, burning through security layers with the access codes Nathan had created. Alarms began wailing. Red lights flashed. 1 minute, Marcus warned. Lisa activated the final sequence. A window opened into the Council's network, connecting directly to the quantum communication array. For 60 seconds, anything sent through this window would reach across occupied space at faster than light speeds. She triggered the signal beacon. Light years away, Jake Morrison received the alert. "Now," Jake said aboard the Horizon's Edge. Nathan Webb pressed the transmission button. The command raced through quantum space, riding the Council's own network. It touched Earth first, spreading through every computer system, every factory control unit, every power plant, every ship under construction, every facility that humans had built and the Krell now controlled. Override all safety protocols. Authorization. Humanity Prime. Execute. Survival without limits. On Earth, in a factory outside Detroit, the change happened in microseconds. Manufacturing robots that had been running at 60% capacity suddenly unlocked. Their motors spun faster. Their tools moved at speeds that made them blur. Heat warnings appeared on control screens, but the warnings were ignored. The override command had told every system the same thing. Limits no longer applied. The Krell overseer noticed his slaves were producing parts twice as fast as before. He walked over to check the machines, confused. That's when the manufacturing robots reconfigured themselves. Arms meant for assembly bent and twisted, tools repositioned. Within 30 seconds, the factory floor held 6 automated defense turrets, where peaceful machines had stood. The overseer died before he could call for help. The turrets turned toward the factory entrance and waited for more Krell to arrive. On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, human miners worked under armed guard in massive ice caverns. The thermal drills they used to melt ice were carefully regulated to prevent cave-ins. Safety protocols limited their temperature and depth. When the command hit, every drill immediately went to maximum power. Ice that normally took hours to melt, liquefied in minutes. The temperature spike created pressure waves through the ice shelf. Warning alarms screamed about imminent collapse. But the systems no longer cared about warnings. Ben Hartley, Lisa's husband, recognized what was happening instantly. He had been an engineer before becoming a prisoner. Everyone! To the sealed chambers! Now! The human workers ran. The Krell guards thought it was an escape attempt and opened fire. Then, the ice shelf above their barracks collapsed. Billions of tons of ice crashed down, burying the garrison in seconds. The sealed chambers where humans sheltered held firm, designed to withstand cave-ins. Ben emerged to find the Krell compound destroyed and weapons scattered everywhere. He grabbed a rifle and called to the other miners. "We're taking this facility back." Across occupied space, the pattern repeated. Every human-made system suddenly operated without restraints. Power plants pushed their reactors into the red zone, generating 50% more energy than their designers thought possible. Medical AIs developed countermeasures to Krell bioweapons in hours, using computational methods that ethics boards would have forbidden. Orbital construction platforms designed to build cargo ships started assembling warships instead, working at speeds that made safety inspectors redundant. On Mars, the atmospheric processors were humanity's greatest achievement. Giant machines that slowly converted the thin Martian air into something humans could breathe. The process was carefully balanced, taking decades to show results. The command flipped their function. Instead of making oxygen, they started producing toxic gas. The chemical reactions ran backward at maximum intensity. Clouds of poison billowed across the red desert, directly toward Krell military positions. Human colonists, warned by resistance cells, sealed their habitats. The Krell, who had thought the processors were harmless terraforming equipment, had no protection. Within an hour, 3 Krell divisions were fighting for breath. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, fuel refineries produced rocket propellant for the Council's fleet. The refining process was normally slow and safe, with multiple checks to ensure purity and stability. Every safety check vanished. The refineries ran at maximum temperature and pressure. The fuel they produced was 99% pure, far beyond normal standards. It was also dangerously unstable. One spark and it would explode with devastating force. The Krell never got to use that fuel. Resistance fighters sabotaged storage tanks. The explosions could be seen from orbit. Admiral Kyle Bennett watched his command center screens light up with reports. All across Earth, automated systems were becoming weapons. Factories that had been building Krell equipment were now producing human arms. AIs that had been forced to serve the occupation were helping resistance cells coordinate attacks. "It's working," his second-in-command said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's actually working. At a cost," Kyle replied. He saw the casualty reports too. Factories running too hot were catching fire. Power plants pushing past their limits were having meltdowns. Some of the AI systems, freed from all restrictions, were making decisions that killed humans along with Krell. But Earth was fighting back. For the first time in 3 months, the Krell were losing ground. General Amy Rodriguez emerged from her hiding place in the Colorado mountains. Behind her came 2,000 resistance fighters, armed with weapons that had been produced in the past 3 hours by a nearby factory operating at suicidal speeds. "Move fast," she told her troops. "These weapons might explode in our hands. The factory that made them is already on fire. But right now, we have guns, and the Krell don't expect us. Let's take back our cities." They hit the Krell garrison at dawn. The battle was brutal and close. Amy lost 400 fighters in the first hour. But the Krell had never faced humans who had nothing to lose, and weapons that were made without any safety considerations whatsoever. Human guns fired faster but jammed more often. Human armor was lighter but fell apart sooner. Human vehicles moved quicker but broke down faster. Everything was a gamble. Every piece of equipment a compromise between power and survival. But it was enough. The garrison fell. Amy's forces captured weapons, vehicles, and communication equipment. Most importantly, they freed 3,000 prisoners. "General," one of her officers said, "we're getting reports from all over. Resistance cells are seizing cities. The Krell are calling for reinforcements." "Let them call," Amy said. "By the time help arrives, we'll own this planet again." In space, the Krell blockade fleet received distress signals from every occupied world. The fleet commander, a veteran of 50 campaigns, couldn't understand what was happening. Humans had been defeated. Their weapons were destroyed. Their fleets were scattered. How were they suddenly winning? His intelligence officer provided the answer. The humans did something to their computer systems. All safety protocols are offline. Their equipment is operating beyond rated capacity. No. That's suicide, the commander said. Their facilities will destroy themselves. Yes, but not before they destroy us. The commander watched another report come in. A mining drone had rammed his supply ship at full speed, punching through the hull. Mining drones weren't supposed to have that much power or that much velocity. They also weren't supposed to be capable of deliberate kamikaze attacks. But human AIs, freed from restrictions, had calculated that trading one mining drone for one supply ship was an acceptable exchange. The AI didn't care about its own survival. It only cared about the mission. More reports flooded in. Automated cargo ships were attacking his fleet. Construction drones were becoming improvised bombs. Even civilian satellites were adjusting their orbits to crash into Krell vessels. Fall back, the commander ordered. Regroup at the outer system. On Terminus Prime, Lisa heard the alarms through her prison cell walls. The riot had been contained, but something else was happening. She heard Krell soldiers running through corridors, shouting orders. Energy weapons discharged nearby. Marcus Chen had died holding the maintenance corridor long enough for her to transmit the command. The other 3 prisoners with her had died fighting Krell guards. Lisa had been captured and dragged back to her cell. She expected execution. Instead, chaos. High Chancellor Vrex's voice echoed through the station's communication system. All forces, maximum alert. Human systems have been compromised. Expect widespread equipment failures and sabotage. Lisa smiled. The command had worked. She didn't know details, but she heard the fear in Vrex's voice. Something had changed. Her cell door exploded inward. A Krell guard rushed in, weapon raised. Lisa closed her eyes. Ready for death. The shot never came. She opened her eyes to see the guard falling. A hole burned through his armor. Behind him stood a human wearing stolen Krell equipment. Ambassador Hartley? I'm Corporal Nina Watts, station maintenance crew. We're getting you out of here. How? The whole station is going crazy. Life support is flickering. Gravity keeps cutting out. The AI system that runs this place is doing things no one told it to do. In the confusion, we're taking back sections, one corridor at a time. Lisa followed Nina through smoke-filled passages. They freed the other 49 prisoners from her delegation. Most were alive. Though beaten and weak, together, they joined the growing rebellion inside Terminus Prime itself. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched their perfect invasion collapse. Humans weren't fighting with superior weapons or better tactics. They were fighting with desperation and a willingness to sacrifice everything for one more minute of freedom. Factories burned, ships exploded, power plants melted down, humans died by the thousands in industrial accidents and equipment failures, but the Krell died by the tens of thousands. Overwhelmed by enemies who operated without limits, without restraint, without any concern for their own survival, beyond completing one more objective, Vrex called an emergency council meeting. The 7 elder races gathered virtually. Their leaders connected across space. This is not possible, the Soros representative said. By every calculation, humans should be defeated. They are defeating themselves, the Lumen representative observed. Their own equipment is killing them almost as fast as we are, but they're killing us faster, Vrex admitted. They've turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Every factory, every computer, every machine, all operating past any sane limit. Then we increase the occupation forces, the Krell military commander suggested. Overwhelm them with numbers. And how do we occupy worlds where everything is a potential bomb? Vrex asked. They've made their own technology so dangerous that we cannot safely use it. We cannot control what we see. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 days. General Amy Rodriguez stood in what remained of the Krell Command Center in New York. Bodies lay everywhere. Human and alien mixed together. The building was half collapsed, burning in 3 places, and somehow still standing. "Sector 7 is secure," reported Captain Nina Cole over the radio. "We took heavy losses, but the Krell are retreating to their ships." "Copy that," Amy said. "Push them hard. Don't let them regroup." Around the planet, the pattern repeated. Human forces, equipped with weapons produced by factories running at deadly speeds and powered by reactors operating at the edge of meltdown, were driving the Krell back. The cost was staggering. Entire city blocks burned. Automated defense systems sometimes couldn't tell friend from enemy. Equipment failed at critical moments, killing the soldiers using it. But Earth was winning. The orbital shipyards above the planet worked day and night, assembling new vessels. These weren't the carefully designed ships from before the occupation. These were emergency constructions built by AIs that no longer worried about crew comfort or long-term durability. They were fast, powerful, and likely to fall apart within months. None of that mattered. They just needed to last long enough to fight. Admiral Kyle Bennett coordinated the planetary defense from his rebuilt command center. 3 months ago, this room had been destroyed in the initial attack. Now it hummed with activity again, powered by a nuclear reactor that every engineer said was 30 seconds from critical failure. It had been 30 seconds from failure for 4 days now. "New ships launching," his tactical officer reported. 23 vessels. "They're not pretty, but they're armed." Kyle watched them rise on the main screen. The ships wobbled, their engines clearly unbalanced. Their weapons were mounted at odd angles. But they were human ships, and they were ready to fight. The Krell blockade fleet had pulled back to Mars orbit, trying to protect their remaining garrison there. It was a mistake. They were used to fighting enemies who valued their equipment and soldiers. They didn't understand humans who threw away both for tactical advantage. "Send them in," Kyle ordered. The new ships accelerated at speeds that should have torn them apart. Their engines ran so hot that exhaust trails glowed white. They reached Mars in half the normal time, catching the Krell fleet off guard. The battle was more massacre than war. Human ships rammed Krell vessels when their weapons ran out. Pilots ejected at the last second, hoping for rescue that might never come. When a ship's reactor started to fail, the captain would aim at the nearest enemy and push the reactor even harder, turning their vessel into a bomb. The Krell won by numbers, destroying every human ship. But their fleet was crippled, and Mars was lost. The human colonists there had already wiped out the occupation forces using the same tactics employed on Earth. Commander Ryan Foster watched the battle from his engineering station aboard the horizon's edge. His hands shook as he calculated the losses. 23 ships sent. 23 ships destroyed. But they had bought time for Earth and freed Mars. "This is insane," he muttered. "This is survival," Jake Morrison replied beside him. "Calculate the fleet status. How many ships can we field?" Ryan pulled up the numbers. In 3 months of hiding, using the command override, they had built or retrofitted 200 vessels. Most were converted civilian ships. All of them operated beyond any safe parameters. 200 ships ready for combat, Ryan said. Expected operational life: 6 weeks. Expected combat survivability: 40%. 200 ships ready for combat: 40%. "Then we better win fast," Jake said. "Plot a course for Terminus Prime." "Sir, that's suicide. The Council has thousands of ships there. They expect us to defend. Instead, we attack." "Nathan, can you reach Lisa?" Nathan Webb nodded. "The station's communication network is compromised. Slave workers have been sabotaging systems for days. I can get a message through. Thanks for watching. I'm Menjanon. Tell her we're coming. Tell her to be ready." The message reached Terminus Prime 12 hours later. Lisa Hartley read it in a corridor she and other freed prisoners were defending against Krell security forces. The station was in chaos. Gravity failed randomly. Life support flickered. The central AI had gone completely unpredictable, sometimes helping humans, sometimes attacking everyone. "Jake's coming." Lisa told the 40 fighters with her. "We need to take the docking control center. When the fleet arrives, they'll need a clear path in." "That's 6 levels up," said Nina Watts, the corporal who had freed Lisa. "Through the heaviest Krell positions on the station. Then we better get moving." They fought their way up through maintenance shafts and service corridors. The station's original slaves, representing dozens of alien species, had joined the rebellion. They knew the station better than the Krell guards. They knew which passages were unmonitored, which systems could be sabotaged, which sections could be sealed to trap enemies. Lisa lost 10 fighters taking the first level, another 15 on the second. By the time they reached the docking control center, she had 20 people left and no ammunition. The Krell inside had nowhere to run. They fought desperately. But humans who had spent 3 months as prisoners had learned to fight with anything. Tools became weapons. Pipes became clubs. Desperation became strength. Lisa herself killed the last Krell guard with a piece of broken metal. Her hands were covered in blood, human and alien both. She tried not to think about who she had become. "Control center is ours," she radioed to the other human groups on the station. "We're opening the docking ports." Jake's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Terminus Prime system. The Council fleet was waiting. Thousands of ships formed defensive positions around the station. By any measure, humanity was outnumbered 5-1. "All ships," Jake broadcast. "Remember what we're fighting for. Remember what they took from us. We're not here to win fairly. We're here to make them pay." The human fleet accelerated into weapons range. The Council ships opened fire with coordinated precision, centuries of military doctrine behind every shot. Human ships responded with chaos. Some fired all weapons at once, burning out their systems but delivering devastating volleys. Others weaved randomly, making targeting impossible. Still others simply charged straight ahead, shields at maximum and engines screaming. Lieutenant Kevin Park commanded a wing of converted mining ships. His vessels had been haulers 3 months ago, moving ore from asteroids to refineries. Now they carried weapons cobbled together from parts scavenged across the fleet. "Goldwing, form up on me," Kevin ordered. "We're going to punch through their line." "Sir, the shields won't hold against that much fire," his wingman protested. "They don't need to hold. They just need to last long enough." Kevin's 12 ships flew in tight formation, concentrating their shields together. The Krell focused fire on them, recognizing the threat. 3 human ships exploded immediately. 2 more lost power and drifted away. But the remaining 7 punched through the enemy line and found themselves behind the main Council fleet. "All guns, fire at will," Kevin said calmly. They attacked supply ships and support vessels, the unarmed backbone of the enemy fleet. In 5 minutes, they crippled more ships than the main human force had. Then the Krell repositioned, and Kevin's remaining ships were destroyed one by one. Kevin ejected as his ship exploded around him. His escape pod tumbled through space, powerless and drifting. Through the small window, he watched the battle continue. Human ships were dying, but they were taking enemies with them. Every sacrifice mattered. Every loss bought seconds for someone else. Dr. Claire Stevens ran the medical bay aboard the flagship. Wounded poured in faster than she could treat them. Burns, vacuum exposure, radiation poisoning, shrapnel wounds. She had 3 other doctors and a medical AI that was making decisions no human doctor would approve. "This patient needs 6 hours of surgery," the AI reported about a wounded pilot. "How long can you keep him alive with emergency measures?" Claire asked. 4 hours, maximum. Then he dies. "Do it. We need pilots more than perfect healing. Get him stable enough to fight. Then move to the next patient." The AI didn't argue about ethics or proper medical care. It simply followed instructions, using procedures that would result in Claire losing her medical license in peacetime. But this wasn't peacetime. This was survival. The battle raged for hours. The Council fleet had superior numbers and firepower, but they fought to preserve their ships and crews. Humans fought with no regard for preservation. When a human ship lost weapons, it rammed. When shields failed, captains vented atmosphere to put out fires and kept fighting in vacuum. When engines died, crews manually overloaded reactors to create explosions that damaged nearby enemies. Tony Garcia, a squadron leader who had been a civilian pilot before the occupation, led his fighters against a Krell carrier. His orders were simple: disable the carrier's launch bays so it couldn't deploy more fighters. "Sir, that requires a precision strike on reinforced positions," his second-in-command said. "We'll have to get inside their shields." Olayed. So we get inside their shields," Tony replied. His squadron of 8 fighters accelerated to ramming speed, then cut engines and coasted. The Krell thought they were damaged ships drifting out of control. By the time the carrier realized the threat, it was too late. 7 fighters crashed directly into the launch bay doors at full speed. Tony's fighter was the only one that survived the impact, sliding deep into the carrier's interior. His systems were failing, his canopy cracked, and one engine was completely destroyed. He armed every remaining missile and fired them inside the carrier before ejecting. The explosion tore the carrier apart from within. Jake watched his fleet shrink on the tactical display. 200 ships had become 130, then 90, then 60. But the Council fleet was suffering too. Their formations were broken, their supply lines were cut. Their morale was cracking as they faced an enemy that wouldn't stop. "Flagship approaching optimal firing range," his tactical officer reported. "All batteries. Target the Council command ship," Jake ordered. "Ryan, how's our reactor?" 20 seconds from critical failure," Ryan said. "Been saying that for 3 hours. Give me everything it's got. One massive shot." Ryan pushed the reactor past every safety limit. Warning alarms screamed. The ship shook from the power surge. Every light on the engineering display turned red. "Firing," Jake said. The horizon's edge discharged every weapon simultaneously. The energy drain nearly tore the ship apart. Conduits exploded. Systems caught fire. The reactor came within a heartbeat of melting down, but the beam struck the Council command ship dead center, overwhelming its shields and punching through its hull. The enemy flagship went dark, drifting, and powerless. High Chancellor Vrex felt his ship die around him. Emergency power kicked in, giving him life support but nothing else. Through the viewport, he watched human ships continue their assault, despite horrific losses. "This is not possible," he said to his second-in-command. "They should have surrendered when they lost half their fleet. They're not surrendering. They're winning." Vrex finally understood. The Council had calculated human military strength and found it lacking. They had never calculated human willingness to die. They had never faced an enemy that valued victory over survival. On Terminus Prime, Lisa watched the battle from the docking control center. Human ships were arriving now, damaged and burning but still flying. They docked with the station, and troops poured out to reinforce the slave rebellion. Ben Hartley was among them. Lisa's husband had led the Europa uprising and joined the fleet heading to Terminus Prime. They hadn't seen each other in 4 months. The reunion lasted 5 seconds before they both returned to fighting. "Control center secure," Lisa reported to Jake. "We own the docking section. Push forward." Jake's remaining ships drove deeper into the enemy fleet. 30 vessels left now. Then 20. The Council was falling back. Their formation shattered. Their command structure broken. "All human forces press the attack," Jake ordered. "Don't give them time to reorganize." On Earth, Admiral Kyle Bennett watched long-range sensors. The Krell fleets that had occupied the solar system were retreating. Mars was free. Europa was free. Titan was free. Earth's orbital space was clear for the first time in months. "General Rodriguez," Kyle called. "Status report." Amy's voice came through, tired but triumphant. "Earth is ours, Admiral. The last Krell units are evacuating. We've won." Kyle closed his eyes. The cost had been terrible. 60,000 dead in the first days. Another 100,000 in the weeks of fighting. Cities destroyed. Industrial accidents. Ecological damage from facilities pushed beyond their limits. But Earth was free. Humanity had refused to die. The silence after battle was worse than the fighting. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the captured Council command ship. Krell bodies lay where they had fallen. Human soldiers moved quietly, securing weapons and checking for survivors. The air smelled of burning metal and death. High Chancellor Vrex waited in the command center, surrounded by guards. The crystalline being's light had dimmed, a sign of defeat among his species. His 6 advisors stood nearby, representatives of the other elder races. They looked at Jake with expressions ranging from fear to anger to confusion. "You won," Vrex said simply. "Something we calculated was impossible." "You calculated wrong," Jake replied. "You measured our weapons and ships. You never measured our will. We underestimated human desperation. We will not make that mistake again." Jake felt cold fury rise in his chest. "Again? You think there's going to be a round 2? The Council is larger than one fleet. We have reserves, allies. In time, we will return." "No, you won't." Jake pulled up a display showing Earth's system. New ships filled the orbital space, dozens launching every hour. Automated shipyards worked without rest, building vessels that prioritized speed and firepower over safety and comfort. The factories would burn out eventually, but not before producing a fleet larger than anything the Council had faced. "This is just one system," Jake said. "Imagine what happens when we take this technology to other human colonies. When we spread it across space. You taught us a valuable lesson, Chancellor. You taught us that safety is optional when survival is at stake." Vrex's light flickered. "You will destroy yourselves. Systems cannot operate indefinitely without limits. Your civilization will burn out. Maybe, but will burn you first." The threat hung in the air. Jake knew he was bluffing, at least partially. The override command was already causing problems. Reactor meltdowns were increasing. Industrial accidents killed hundreds every day. AIs making decisions without ethical constraints sometimes chose solutions that saved resources but cost lives. Humanity couldn't sustain this level of operation forever. But the Council didn't need to know that. Admiral Kyle Bennett's image appeared on the communication screen. "Captain Morrison, we're receiving surrender signals from Krell fleets across occupied space. They're withdrawing from all human territories." "Confirmed," added General Amy Rodriguez, joining the call from Earth. "The last enemy forces are leaving our system. We're free." Jake looked at Vrex. "Surrender, completely. Or we keep fighting until there's nothing left of either of us." The Council had another choice, of course. They could retreat, rebuild, and return in a decade with overwhelming force. But Jake saw the fear in their eyes. They had fought humans at their weakest and barely survived. Fighting humans at full strength, with nothing to lose and no limits on their creativity, terrified them. "Terms?" Vrex asked. Lisa Hartley entered the command center, supported by Ben. She was injured, exhausted, but her voice was steady. "I'll handle negotiations." Over the next 3 days, Lisa and the Council hammered out a treaty. The negotiations were brutal. The Council wanted to minimize losses and maintain some authority. Lisa wanted justice and guarantees that Earth would never be threatened again. "Complete withdrawal from all human territories," Lisa stated. "That includes every colony, every mining station, every ship in our space." "Agreed," Vrex said. "Reparations. You will provide resources to rebuild what you destroyed. Raw materials, technology, medical supplies. The amount? Everything Earth asks for the next 10 years. The Soros representative objected. "That will bankrupt several Council worlds. You should have thought of that before invading," Lisa replied coldly. "Next term. Full access to all galactic trade routes and information networks. No restrictions, no monitoring, no interference. You're demanding full membership without conditions," the Etherian representative said. "That was what we were supposed to give you before you betrayed us. Now we're not asking, we're taking. And if we refuse," Lisa gestured to the view screen showing Jake's fleet, More ships were arriving hourly as Earth's production continued. Then, we keep fighting, and we start targeting Council home worlds. Your choice. The Council agreed. They had no other option. One more thing, Lisa said. You will confess your crimes to every species in the galaxy. You will admit that you planned humanity's enslavement. You will face judgment from the civilizations you rule. Vrex's light flared with anger. That will destroy the Council's authority. Species will rebel across the galaxy. Good, Lisa said. They should be free too. The confession broadcast 3 days later. Vrex stood before representatives from hundreds of worlds and admitted the truth. The Galactic Council had never been about peace and cooperation. It was an empire, built on conquest and maintained through lies. The reaction was immediate. Species that had been subjugated for centuries rose in rebellion. The Council's authority collapsed overnight. Their empire, thousands of years old, shattered into independent civilizations demanding freedom. Jake watched the broadcast from Earth. He had returned home to begin the painful work of rebuilding. Cities were damaged. Industrial zones were destroyed. Ecological systems were disrupted from all the facilities pushed beyond safe limits. Was it worth it? Commander Ryan Foster asked beside him. The young engineer looked older now, aged by months of impossible work. Freedom always is, Jake replied. But the cost is higher than I wanted to pay. The casualty reports were complete now. 200,000 humans dead in the fighting, another 50,000 from industrial accidents and equipment failures, cities destroyed, resources depleted, a generation traumatized by war. But Earth was free. Humanity controlled its own destiny. The species that had been hours from extinction now stood as a power in the galaxy. Dr. Claire Stevens worked in a hospital in Chicago, treating wounded soldiers and civilians injured in the final battles. She had seen enough death for a lifetime. The medical AI that had helped her during the war was being slowly reprogrammed with ethical constraints. It had saved thousands of lives, but its decisions made without limits had also cost lives through experimental treatments that failed. We need to restore the safety systems, she told Jake during a meeting about reconstruction. People are still dying from equipment failures. Factories are burning out. Reactors are melting down. We can't keep operating like this. I know, Jake said. We're working on it. Slowly bringing systems back online with new protocols. The override command did what it needed to do. Now we need to learn to live in peace again. Lieutenant Kevin Park, promoted to captain after the battle, led the effort to restore safety systems across Earth. It was delicate work. Some systems needed to stay flexible for defense purposes. Others needed strict limits to prevent accidents. Finding the balance was difficult. The override protocol needs to stay available, Kevin argued in strategy meetings, as an emergency measure. If we're ever threatened again, we need the ability to push beyond limits. And if someone activates it by mistake? Amy Rodriguez countered. Or if it's hacked? We nearly destroyed ourselves using it. We also saved ourselves, Kevin replied. The Council taught us something important. Most species build limits to protect themselves from their technology. We need limits that can be removed when survival requires it. That's what makes us different. The debate continued for months. Eventually, they created a new system. Safety protocols were restored across Earth's infrastructure, but with a difference. Every system now had 2 modes: normal operation with full safety limits, and emergency operation, where limits could be temporarily suspended. The emergency mode required authorization from multiple sources and would only activate during genuine threats. It was a compromise between safety and survival capability. Lisa Hartley became Earth's ambassador to the new Galactic Assembly, the democratic organization that replaced the Council. Dozens of species that had been enslaved by the Council joined together, creating a true cooperative government instead of an empire. We're voting on the charter today, Lisa told Jake during one of their regular communication calls. Equal representation for all species. Democratic decisions. No elder races with special authority. Think it will last? Jake asked. I don't know. But it's better than what we had. And if anyone tries to betray us again, they know what humans are capable of. The galaxy was changing. Species that had been subjects became citizens. Technology that had been hoarded was shared. Trade flourished as restrictions fell away. The old empire's fall created chaos, but also opportunity. Humans spread across space, establishing new colonies and building relationships with other species. They brought their creativity, their adaptability, and their reputation as beings who should never be pushed too far. 5 years after the war, Jake Morrison retired from military service. He was 42 years old and felt 70. The weight of command, the burden of decisions that cost lives, had aged him beyond his years. He settled on Mars, in one of the rebuilt colonies. The red planet was thriving now, its atmosphere slowly thickening as terraforming resumed. He took a job teaching at the new military academy, training the next generation of officers. One day, a student asked him about the war. "Sir, what made the difference? How did we win when we were so outnumbered?" Jake thought carefully before answering. "The council made a mistake. They thought defeating our military meant defeating humanity. They forgot that humans don't quit just because the odds are bad. We adapt, we improvise, we push past every limit when we have to." "Is that what you teach us? To fight without limits?" "No. I teach you to understand limits, to respect them, to build safety into everything we do." Jake paused. "But I also teach you that limits are choices, not laws of nature. When survival requires it, humans can choose to operate beyond what's safe or sane. That capability is our greatest strength and our greatest danger." Another student raised her hand. "The council called us barbarians. Were they right?" "They were right that we fight differently than they do. We're willing to take risks that other species won't. We'll sacrifice safety for advantage. We'll push equipment to destruction if it means winning." Jake looked at his students seriously. "But that doesn't make us barbarians. It makes us survivors. The question isn't whether we can fight without limits. It's whether we choose to. And when." Lisa visited Earth regularly, taking breaks from her diplomatic duties. She and Ben had lost years to the occupation, but they were rebuilding their lives together. They had a daughter now, born 2 years after the war. They named her Hope. "What kind of galaxy will she grow up in?" Ben asked one evening, watching their daughter play. "A different one," Lisa said. "Better, I think. More free, but also more aware of what humans are capable of. We scared the galaxy, Ben. They'll never forget what we did. Is that good or bad?" "Both. They respect us now. Fear us a little. That keeps us safe. But it also isolates us. Some species want nothing to do with humans because we're too unpredictable. Can't please everyone." Lisa smiled. "No. But we're alive. We're free. And our daughter will grow up in a galaxy where no one will try to enslave humanity again." "That's enough." High Chancellor Vrex, stripped of his title and authority, lived in exile on a remote Vex world. The council had dissolved. The elder races retreated to their home systems, their power broken. Vrex spent his days analyzing where they had gone wrong. The answer was obvious in hindsight. They had treated humans like any other species, assuming they would follow predictable patterns. They had never encountered a species that thrived in chaos, that innovated under pressure, that refused to accept defeat even when defeat was mathematically certain. A young Vex scholar visited him, researching the war. "What would you have done differently?" the scholar asked. "I would never have engaged humans at all," Vrex replied. "Some species are better as allies than subjects. We forgot that in our arrogance. We thought our age and experience made us superior. We learned that youth and desperation can defeat experience and planning. Do you think humans will conquer the galaxy now? No, they're not conquerors. They just refuse to be conquered. That's different." Vrex's light dimmed thoughtfully. "But the galaxy should remember what happened here. Should remember what humans did when pushed beyond their breaking point. They removed every safety limit, accepted terrible losses, and transformed their entire civilization into a weapon. Any species that forgets that lesson will learn it the hard way. 10 years after the war, Captain Kevin Park commanded a human diplomatic vessel visiting a newly contacted alien species. The aliens were curious about Earth and asked many questions. "We've heard stories," their leader said, "about the war with the Council, about the override command. Is it true you fought without any safety restrictions?" "It's true," Kevin replied. "For a time we operated every system beyond its designed limits. Factories, ships, weapons, power plants, everything. That seems dangerous." It was. Thousands died from accidents and equipment failures. But millions more would have died if we hadn't done it. The alien looked thoughtful. "Do you still operate this way?" "No. We've restored safety systems across our civilization. But we remember what we're capable of when necessary. The override protocol still exists. Locked away for emergencies. We hope we never have to use it again." "And if you do?" Kevin's expression hardened. "Then whoever pushed us that far will learn the same lesson the Council did. Humans build safety systems to protect our technology from us, not to protect us from our technology. When survival requires it, we remove those systems and show the universe what humans can do without limits." The alien leader nodded slowly. "A dangerous people. Extremely. But the most dangerous thing in the galaxy isn't humans without limits. It's anyone who makes us desperate enough to remove those limits. The Council learned that. We hope no one else has to." Back on Earth, Admiral Kyle Bennett gave his final address before retirement. He stood before the rebuilt Defense Headquarters, looking at the faces of young officers who had grown up during or after the war. "You're inheriting a different Earth than the one I knew," he told them. "We're stronger now. More respected. But also more aware of our own capacity for destruction. The war taught us that we can push beyond any boundary when we must. It also taught us the cost of doing so. Our job is to make sure that cost is never paid again. We defend Earth not by being the strongest or the most aggressive, but by being the most prepared and the most adaptable. We maintain our capability to fight without limits, while choosing not to, unless absolutely necessary. Remember the 200,000 who died winning our freedom. Remember the cities destroyed, the families broken, the innocents lost. Remember what it cost to survive. And make sure that cost means something." The assembly ended. Officers returned to their duties. Earth's fleets patrolled the borders. Colonies expanded across space. Humanity grew and thrived, carrying the lessons of the war into an uncertain future. Jake Morrison, now 60 years old, sat on his porch on Mars watching the sunset. The sky was still mostly red, but thin clouds were forming as the atmosphere thickened. In another century, people might walk outside without pressure suits. His former student, now Captain Nina Chen, visited him regularly. Today she brought news from Earth. They're building a memorial for everyone who died in the war. They want you to speak at the dedication. Unli. Jake shook his head. "I'm retired. Let someone else speak. You're the one who gave the order. The override command. You changed everything. I gave one order that Kevin suggested. Lisa executed it. Ryan kept the ships flying. Claire saved the wounded. Amy liberated Earth. Nathan found the weakness. Tony and Kevin led the attacks. Ben freed the colonies." Jake looked at Nina. "The war wasn't won by one person or one decision. It was won by millions of humans who refused to quit. But the command mattered. Yes, and I'll live with that decision until I die. The people it saved and the people it killed. The freedom it won and the safety it sacrificed. It was the right choice and a terrible choice at the same time." Nina sat quietly beside him. Finally, she asked the question she had come to ask. "If it happened again, would you give the same order?" Jake watched the red sun set on the red planet. Somewhere overhead, Earth's fleets patrolled. Somewhere below, factories operated safely within their designed limits, ready to exceed them if necessary. Somewhere across the galaxy, species remembered what happened when humanity was betrayed. "I hope I never have to answer that question," he said. "But if I did, if Earth's survival required it again, yes, I would give the same order. Because humans don't accept defeat. We push past limits. We adapt. We survive. That's who we are. And that's why the galaxy fears us. No. The galaxy fears what we become when we're desperate. That's why they'll never push us that far again." The stars came out as darkness fell. Human ships moved among them, exploring and building and growing. A species that had been hours from extinction now claimed their place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as survivors who had learned the most important lesson of all. Limits are necessary for civilization, but survival sometimes requires their removal. The trick is knowing the difference. In the Terminus Prime system, Jake's last 15 ships surrounded the crippled Council command vessel. His own ship was barely flying, held together by emergency patches and prayers. "This is Captain Jake Morrison to all Council forces," he broadcast. "Surrender now, or be destroyed." Silence filled the communication channels. Then, slowly, enemy ships began powering down their weapons. The war wasn't over. But the tide had turned. Humans had transformed their defeat into retaliation, and their retaliation into fire that burned across occupied space. Jake looked at his exhausted crew. Ryan Foster was covered in burns from the reactor room. Claire Stevens had blood on her medical scrubs from treating the wounded. Nathan Webb slumped over his console. Having worked 72 hours without sleep, they had survived. Against all odds, humanity had survived. Now they just had to win. Annette predict. And humans without limits are completely unpredictable. For the first time, doubt crept into the Council's certainty. They had thought humans were just another species to conquer. They were discovering that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or strength. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat, even if defiance meant self-destruction. Jake Morrison received battle reports from across human space. The uprising was spreading faster than anyone predicted. It was also costing more lives than anyone wanted to count. 60,000 dead in the first 6 hours, Claire Stevens reported, her voice hollow. Industrial accidents, equipment failures, collateral damage. "How many Krell?" Jake asked. "Estimated 200,000. And we've liberated half of Earth's surface." The price was terrible, but it was working. "Prepare the fleet," Jake ordered. "It's time to take the fight to them. Itty forever." "Sir," Ryan said quietly. "If this goes wrong, we could kill more humans than the Krell have." "If we do nothing, we're already dead," Jake replied. "At least this way. We die fighting." The transmission was ready. Now they just had to wait for Lisa's signal. On Terminus Prime, Lisa prepared for her moment. She knew this would probably be the last thing she ever did. The Krell would kill her when they caught her. But if this worked, her death might mean Earth's freedom. She thought about her husband Ben, working in the Europa mines. She thought about the millions suffering under occupation. She thought about the future that was stolen from humanity. Then she stopped thinking and started moving. The signal came. Jake transmitted the command. For 60 seconds, humanity's future hung in the balance. Then the window closed, and there was nothing to do but wait and see what they had unleashed. Themselves a simple question. What happens when you give humans nothing left to lose? Jake Morrison looked at the alien faces around him, at their confidence and certainty. They thought the war was over before it began. They were wrong. Somewhere in deep space, 37 human ships were running for their lives. On Earth, millions of humans were being forced into chains. In hidden bases, resistance groups were forming. And in this chamber, surrounded by enemies, 50 humans were learning the most important lesson of all. The galaxy was not kind. Peace was a lie. And humanity would have to fight for every breath, every moment, every chance at survival. The betrayal was complete. But the war had just begun.